We may have John Flansburgh on the phone right now. I can tell by her voice, the fangirl tones, that John Flansburgh is on the phone. So,
hey, everybody.
Oh, there he is. There's John Flansburgh.
Hello.
Hey, John. How are you doing?
I'm doing very good. It's a beautiful overcast day here in the Catskill Mountains.
The Catskill Mountains. Nice.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we're at 5 degrees here in beautiful Mankato, Minnesota.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is it? But that's probably pretty typical of this time of year, right?
It
Yeah,
was
but last Saturday was 70 degrees.
It was 75 degrees last Saturday. So,
Oh yeah. Well, we've been getting snow intermittently for the last couple of weeks, so it doesn't feel. It feels like winter is coming.
to quote Game of Thrones.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us again. This is our 7th year of playing They Might Be Giants on the radio, and
Wow. I'm still getting used to this idea. That. Thank you so much. It's such a sweet thing that you guys do. It's really remarkable for us. So. Thanks for your interest. I mean, there's only one other radio marathon I know of, and it's up here where they on Bob Dylan's birthday, they play Bob Dylan music all day. And although, he's not dead, but it does seem sort of like the radio equivalent of carving your face into Mount Rushmore. So
we do day sponsorships on occasion. That's how this started. They're just not normally 12 hours, and so if you play more than a couple songs by an artist, you're going to get somebody calling up and going, "Did something happen to them?"
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I was driving a couple of months ago, and I'm not sure what artist it was, but it was just Led Zeppelin. But I was went from one station to another, and then to another, and it just happened to be Led Zeppelin. I was like, oh no,
Yeah.
one of those guys must have died.
Well, that's because all those stations are probably pre-programmed the same. That's why freeform radio is so much fun.
Well,
which you know because you've been DJing on a freeform radio station.
Yeah. Oh well, speaking of the robot radio, there's one station up here that is completely it's probably entirely created and performed out of Phoenix, Arizona or something, because they will include local town announcements and all the towns around here have Indian names, so they just pronounce them all wrong.
Oh.
Sure. Yeah.
So
it's a sure sign.
Yeah, spot the non-local.
Yep.
But I started doing, in the middle of this pandemic, I started doing a radio show.
WJFF.
Yeah, WJFF, which is our local station here, and WJFF is really it's like a classic community radio station. It's mostly public radio during the day, and music spun by local music fanatics at night. And some of it's actually really quite progressive. It's in some of the shows sort of seem like people who escape the gravitational pull of WFMU, which is a big station in New York. That's
we love WFMU.
Yeah, they've got some incredible programming. But one of the interesting things about WJFF here is that they have actually quite successfully started doing local news and culture programming that does not resemble a Saturday Night Live parody of public radio. I'm not sure if it's just because it's more serious times, but they actually have pulled in some of the local newspaper people and have shows on Saturday that completely seem like regular big time. The population density here is really, just to be clear, nobody lives here. This is like
Okay.
Montana levels of population density. So it's you don't expect anything to be super pro.
Mm-hmm.
But they actually have local programming about local news things, shows about fracking and shows about everything that's locally happening, and there is quite a bit of like local politics that is barely covered by any, except by a weekly newspaper, and they've managed to actually make real stuff out of it, and it's kind of impressive. I mean, that to me seems like the hardest things to do. It seems like the hardest thing to fake.
Well, I know that something that bothers me is when I hear that people say that radio is dying, that it's a dying medium, and I think they're talking about commercial radio. They're not talking about like stations like us, stations like that actually is pretty vital in this time, especially with news or just having a community.
Absolutely.
Because we're thriving. We're doing really good.
Well, I mean, yeah, when there's community problems, I think people go to, you don't turn on CBS to see if the buses are canceled. And that doesn't seem like such a big deal, except like, right now we're living in a time when like everything's canceled. So it's, their community radio and public radio is more important than it usually ever is. I had an interesting conversation with a guy, I'm spacing his name, but he was a big wheel at WNYC at the time, which is the New York City public radio station, and has been on the air for like 100 years. And he said that if you even described what WNYC was to somebody from Clear Channel, as just a format, they'd be like, yeah, that would be a pretty marginal station. You're really not capturing like a primary demographic, because they really think of radio listeners as people who are either at their office or people who have like some shared musical sensibility, or they just divide everybody up like into sections. Everything's demographically defined, and that's what makes a big radio station, is that you've captured a big demographic of a kind of person.
Sure.
But the thing about WNYC is it's the number one station in New York City. There are more people listening to WNYC AM at 8 o'clock in the morning drive time than any other station in New York.
Wow.
And it's not a commercial station. And they don't have to serve any demographic. It's very interesting to me that a station that Clear Channel couldn't even conceive of could be basically the biggest station, the most listened to station in a market like New York City. I mean, you would think Clear Channel would want to figure out how to do what WNYC does.
They can keep to their own.
Yeah.
Well,
so how are you?
We're doing pretty good. It's like we said, it's cold, but in Minnesota's got our COVID numbers are jumping up, so it's getting a little scary around here again. And we're doing, Tom and Chintilla, who are doing the day sponsorship, are actually in the studio that's directly behind us instead of in the room with Tim and I. It's that's just kind of strange to do stuff like this in this day and age, but it's so nice to see people.
And we're still getting a ton of requests. In fact, when we started right off the bat at 6 a.m., Shelley looked at the machine where the texts come in, and she's like, "Whoa, all right." Because it was just a blast. So people around the world are listening.
We already had 350 requests on deck.
Oh, good. Well, now, can you tell me how people should be making requests right now? Should people be texting some number or something now?
Yeah, because I'm trying, because you know that we wanted to try to get France, and we got a ton of France requests off the bat. So
thank you for that.
So now we're just basically, I kind of, when we were doing this before, I would be playing requests that like came in months ahead of time, and I wasn't sure if the people were listening. So I've been working off of our texting machine that we have here, and doing it like in that order. So I know people are currently listening when I'm playing the requests. So if you can,
oh, that's great.
Yeah, if you can text us at 507-389-5678. That's the best way to get a hold of us.
Wait, hold on a second. I've got a phone in front of me here. I got to change the settings so I can get that one bar of AT&T protection. Hold on. What am I doing wrong here?
And I have been looking at have been looking at the pre-submitted requests and kind of cross-checking. So if there's a request that someone sent in a while back, I'm giving them credit on the live tweet.
Because it's
okay. So,
we've been getting requests from so many places. It's great.
Let's see. So what's that number again? I'm going to type it into my phone here.
507.
507.
389.
389.
5678.
5678. Oh, that's
which is
that's
actually KMSU.
Yeah, it's like you planned it. Yeah. That's my New York State driver's number. I might as well be called like John Doe, because it's a sequence of numbers that it's like 234 456 6789. Okay, so it's calling, but
okay, yeah, that must be.
Yep, because we got another line going too.
Am I doing it wrong?
You can send a text message, and then that's how I've been getting
you mean
it.
like you use that number as like a DM? I see.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. See,
It's very high tech, John, because it's actually a hamster that runs our texting machine in the basement named Man Camp, and so he
Man Camp.
Yep. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, he's been with us for a while, and it was around the time when South Dakota had all the man camps set up, and so
the oil field.
He's actually run by Black Ops. He's got this whole backstory.
It's very technical.
He gets a treat every time a text message comes in today, and I don't know what he's getting for it. What is like your favorite food? Because he usually gets themed food that for his treat. Do you have a favorite food that you would like Man Camp to get?
Homemade pizza has been my personal favorite.
Nice.
As of, but I'm putting in my request now, so I'm just typing it in. Play something off state songs.
Well, I got to tell you, we've gotten a ton of questions to ask you. I just want to let you know that I don't think every year I think I say this. There's no way for you to top your instant fan club.
Hold
outings,
on
but boy,
I've got to finish this. From you, anon. Thanks! Exclamation point.
I knew you were gonna write, so I have my birth certificate on me in the station.
I wrote Q and nom by accident.
Nom 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 nom.
Yep, it just showed up. There it is.
Oh, great. What the question was about the secret society that we call our Instant Fan Club. Yes. Yeah, we when did it wrap up? I guess sometime in August.
Yeah, you sold out.
Yeah, we sold. Well, we went actually. See, this year the Instant Fan Club was all spotlit on making books. We actually put together 2 books for this year, and we didn't really know how practical it would be, and we certainly didn't know how complicated it would be. We might have rethought it if we knew exactly what we were in for, because the timelines are sort of insane. You can get a book made in the world quite economically on the other side of the world, but then you have to wait for it to come on a boat. And how I was actually talking to Paul Sayre, the designer who is designing the second book in question, the second book of the 2 books that we're putting out, and he was saying that one of the weird things is that when you put in your order for the book from the printer in Seoul or in Hong Kong or wherever it's getting printed, they give you like a tracking number, like it's a FedEx package.
Oh, sure.
But it's on a boat that's crawling. It's going to take 3 months. The dot takes 3 months to get to you. So it's moving very, very slowly across the world. But we have 2 books. One is just going to the people in the Instant Fan Club. It's sort of like a private edition. And I'm not even going to say the name of it because I don't want to get myself in trouble. But the second one is going to be I'll use the expression that I don't know what people said before this. The public-facing book is actually sort of a compendium of lyrics and these beautiful art photographs by a street photographer whose name I also won't mention because I don't want to spoil anything. But that book is called Book, and it's 12. it's 12 inches by 12 inches, and has lyrics from They Might Be Giants' new album, Book, as well as lyrics. But we didn't want it to just be like a 20-page long thing, so we included some lyrics from I Like Fun and some lyrics from My Murdered Remains. So it's kind of a selection of current lyrics with these very startling photographs, and then all the lyrics have been arranged on an IBM Selectric typewriter.
Oh, excellent!
That Paul Sayre actually purchased for this project, and they're kind of manipulated in. I'm not sure what the actual. It's not poetry concrete is not the term, and it's not. There's one kind of poetry that's sort of like, if you wrote a poem about a bird, you type it up and it's in the shape of a bird.
Oh,
it's not really. It's not really that. It's more. It sort of leans more on the kind of embryonic, sort of paleo-Dadaist impulses of just making crazy shapes with words. That's. I mean, each one is different from the last, so some of them get very far afield. And he's done the proof of concept, and he's actually, I can tell you, he is typing right now, making this thing.
So you're tracking the books coming over, and you're tracking his typing too.
Yeah. Well, one of the books has arrived, so that hopefully will be out for people who are part of the Instant Fan Club. They'll be getting that soon.
I'm super excited about that and the puzzle.
Yeah, it sounds
because
amazing.
It's the perfect time to be putting out puzzles. For all of us stuck at home.
That seemed very. I have to say the strange thing about this whole. A lot of times the Instant Fan Club is really wrapped around like what's happening with the live events, and so it's strange to just have to think about what we can do remotely. I mean, I guess a lot of people are much more ambitious about doing remote stuff, but. I mean, I'm just grateful I've got a telephone up here, to be perfectly honest.
Well, Tim, do you want to share some fan questions?
Yeah, you feel like taking some
Sure.
questions, John? All right. Well, we have one here from Ben in Kendallville, Indiana, who asks, you have a unique fan base. What is one aspect of that fan base that you are most proud of?
By and large, just just kind of the respect fans show us, like people are sort of deferential in a way that is not the case for a lot of bands. People, I think there's a notion that once you sort of enter the public space, that anything you do or say or have is kind of up for grabs, and for whatever reason, and maybe it's just a reflection of our temperament of like we're kind of private people, and we're also kind of in some ways like, in spite of all like our the hypey part of our approach to putting ourselves into the world, we kind of thrive in obscurity, and I don't think it's nice that people don't demand that we be out and about more. Like we don't really have to. We don't think of ourselves in the world of public figures at all, and sometimes that makes our behaviors seem really like in sync with the culture, and sometimes it makes it seem really out of sync. I mean, in some ways, we probably are more like our behaviors are more like people who grew up with social media. Like I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to explain, but I will say I'm just grateful to not be doxxed.
Yeah.
Well, I know when you shared on Twitter the picture of you in line waiting to vote, I put under there, oh my God, if I saw John Flansburgh in line waiting to vote, I would just be yelling at him from however far back I was. I love you so much.
So you dodged a bullet on that one, John.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's not the hard part, you know. I mean, I think that it's more like, I don't know. We're so old. I think we're out of, you know, we're not going to run the risk of, you know, what like a tween sitcom star has to deal with.
I'm glad that you did share that picture of you voting, though, because maybe you're responsible for the largest voting turnout in over 100 years.
I like to give myself some of that credit.
Yeah.
But what was interesting and odd about it is I think I was in line for for a long time in an early voting line, and then, you know, I got my little I voted sticker and put them on like Facebook and Twitter, and this maybe is more of a indictment of Facebook specifically, but with the I voted thing, people were like, why do you have to be political? and it was odd because, I mean, maybe they're closely watching all our tweets and realizing we're just a bunch of knee-jerk liberals, but the truth is I wasn't making any partisan statement.
I
think just, you know, but what the times we live in, saying you voted somehow can really trigger people, and
even wearing a mask can trigger responses, which is sad.
Exactly. You know, that's exactly right. Like there was soon after that, I read some article or saw something that was just about, you know, how the utility of wearing a mask. And I feel like the truth is that there are many people who never get that straight message. I mean, there are people who live in sort of media silos that like do not get beyond the fringes of Fox News, and they don't understand how useful masks are. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a huge, right now in the rural United States, there's a huge problem with COVID, and in large part it's due to the fact that there's just a bunch of tough guys who think that you don't need to wear a mask. And so I feel like anybody in the public sphere can you know, would help other people out just by pointing out the fact that wearing a mask is incredibly effective. And of course, I mean, that, you know, to think that something as banal as mask wearing has been politicized is very depressing to me.
Yeah. It's a sign of a big rift that hopefully is going to start being mended to some extent. I'm gonna remain optimistic about the future because I feel much better about the near future than what could have been the alternate universe where everybody's got mustaches and are evil.
I sure hope that. Yeah, I hope that
Star Trek.
Yeah, no, I caught the Star Trek reference. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a question from Maddie right here in Mankato, Minnesota, saying, "What was your favorite music video to shoot?"
Oh, well, I mean, it's a funny thing to say favorite because it implies that it's just a parade of pleasure. You know, the first couple of videos we did with Adam Bernstein were extremely exciting because it was like we had never done anything like it, and it was sort of a riddle working backwards, trying to figure out what you could do in a video that wasn't already a cliche. I mean, we started making videos in 1986, and MTV, I guess, went on the air in 83, and it seemed like a lot of the things that really were suddenly dull about videos were already baked in at that point, and the list of things we didn't want to do was so long, and we didn't really have any particular ambitions to do it, but like, I think Anna Ang was kind of the culmination of that creative period because it's very the art direction is really cool. It's in black and white, which I really like. I mean, basically, it's really kind of all riffing on a certain Hard Day's Night energy, but I think a lot of people had forgotten about Hard Day's Night, and that's why it seemed fresh at the time. But I think like Anna Ang, and probably following it up with like the actual Dr. Worm video, which was also like a very sort of storyboarded affair.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, working with Adam was a really interesting learning experience for us and for me specifically, because he just sort of showed how to shove all these sort of disparate visual ideas into something that looks cohesive, and it wasn't cliched, which was I mean, that's the biggest plus, is that, you know, we didn't, even though there was a lot of nickel and dime surrealism, it didn't look like it had been done before.
Oh no, not at all. Because I was a big MTV watcher back in the day. I think everybody was that lived at that time.
Yeah.
And Anna Ang stood out from everybody else. Is just being.
Oh, yeah.
It was like, here's a band that really is into art and into looking different, and it looks awesome. And it wasn't just a woman on top of a car singing.
Yeah, you know,
or walking through rainy nights in a city street.
Right. You know, I've mentioned this before, but I'll regale you with my retold stories. I was you know, there was no cable TV in Brooklyn or Queens, but there was an active UHF channel that played hip hop videos.
Okay.
So, like, if I went into Manhattan, I would often get recognized just, you know, being someplace in the East Village or the West Village, just puttering around. People would notice me and say, "Hey, you're that guy." And the FedEx guy came to my apartment in Brooklyn with a package, and he was like, "Hey, you're that guy." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm that guy." And he was asking, he's like, "What are you guys doing?" I'm like, "Oh, we're working on the next record." And it's like, "Oh, what's it like?" "Well, you know, it's got a lot more live instruments on it, you know." And he was like, "Live instruments?" And then he just, the look on his face was like, what? And then after he left, I realized he completely knew I was MC Search.
Oh.
From like it took me a while. Like, his response, he was not believing the live instrument thing at all. And then I realized he was confusing me for a very popular white rapper from Brooklyn, who's a very street level guy, you know, like MC Search. I'm trying to think of the name of his. Step Into the AM was the name of one of their singles, but I can't. What was the name of the actual band? It was Pete Nice and MC Search were the two people behind it, and they had a group. And their biggest song was like a takedown of Vanilla Ice. So that tells you how long ago it was.
Sure. Now they're making swimming pools somewhere like Vanilla Ice.
Oh yeah. Well, I think he's making meth in his basement.
Well, you got to have a hobby.
So,
yeah.
I want to ask a couple of personal questions.
Sure.
And I ask you this every year, is Mink Car going to be on vinyl soon?
Oh, you know, the artwork has been lovingly reproduced. I think there's one. The only thing left is figuring out how to get the text back in, because it appears that it was made with a font that it might not be available now. It was like a boutique font that. Yeah, there's a lot of, you know. We work with this guy who his speciality is kind of rebuilding these sort of dead. He basically rebuilds visual files, and you cannot tell the difference. We found him through Asbestos Records, actually, because that was what they were doing reissues where a lot of artwork was compromised, and you have to really key in on specific fonts, and you have to find a lot of archival things. It's a strange chemistry that he does. But I have to say, as somebody who worked in graphic design, I can't believe how accurate his stuff it works, because it looks just like the original thing. Obviously, it's all sized, exactly with the computer scan, but everything's crisp and looks like the original stuff. But we don't have what's funny is that getting the files for printed material from this century is much harder than getting files from stuff from the previous century, because the previous century stuff is in a physical medium.
Yeah.
That's just been it's just been in a drawer. The art files for a lot of our early aughts, or do people say aughts or O's?
Aughts.
Aughts sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The early aughts, all those formats are just gone. So, there's got to be a little resuscitation going on.
Well, I'm glad to know that it's in the works. And my other totally selfish personal question is, and maybe this doesn't apply to you, but I'm assuming that maybe you have a record collection. How do you organize your record collection?
Oh, well,
especially since you're DJing, are you dipping into that?
I have done a bunch of things off of my record player, but not too much. There's a bunch of stuff that you can't find anywhere else. But I don't have that. I lost my record collection. I'll tell you a weird personal story. I was driving back to Boston, Massachusetts once at Christmas time, 2 days before Christmas or whatever, to see my folks. And I was coming in from the west to my parents' suburban house. And I was listening to the radio, and I was like, oh, man, I haven't heard this song in a long time. This is a great song. Wow. Then another song came on, and I was like, oh, man, killer. Like, what a and it just kept on going. And then I realized my old girlfriend was DJing, and she had all my records.
Is that where your records went to? Oh,
yeah.
God, that's heartbreaking.
So I said, well, I got the tape recorder, she got the records. But,
Gold mine shaft. That's the whole thing.
Yeah. So, I've built up more records in the past 10 years than in the past 30. But to answer your question, we have a Broadway section, which is about 2 feet of records.
Okay.
We have a vocalist section, which is about a foot or 2 feet of records, depending on. Some of the stuff is upstairs, kind of in storage.
So would vocalists be like Sinatra and folks of that ilk? Or?
like a lot of things like Anita O'Day,
sure.
Ella Fitzgerald. We've got a lot of female vocalists,
okay.
and a lot. I've got a lot of Sammy Davis Jr. recorurs.
Oh, do you have his Motown album? His one and only Motown album? It is amazing.
Is that the Candyman album?
No. It is Something for Everyone, and it's a picture of him in his pool house with a bunch of naked ladies.
Naked ladies, right. It's like Sammy Davis Jr.'s version of Electric Ladyland.
Yes.
Yeah, I do not have that one. I mean, to be very honest, I enjoy Sammy Davis Jr. in an unironic way. I mean, I actually...
Oh, we do too.
I really love his... I just find the range of his voice to be really, really interesting, and he's so strangely confident. I often think about whether or not it's so clear to me that he's the idea of being phony to him does not exist, and it's like he's not, nothing he does is real or fake or phoned in or unphoned in. So he's sort of he's on give it 110% all the time. And
if you've not read his biography, you should, because it's probably one of the best musical biographies I've ever read.
Oh, I'm staring at a hardbound autographed copy of it right here on my bookshelf.
Nice. Autographed.
Yeah.
Mine is an
Yeah.
autograph. That's all. I love that book.
Mine is autograph. Hold on a second. I think the Yes I Can one, I believe. Look at the autograph right here. Here it is. Oh no, this is not the one. This is with all my best, Sammy Davis Jr.
Okay.
But I have one Sammy Davis Jr. book that was the autograph is to the co-writer.
Oh, wow.
Because he did all his books. He did a couple of books, and the other one that I have was actually like dedicated to the guy who wrote it with him.
Wow.
So
it's probably his copy.
Yeah, it's a weird, a lot of stuff gets back into those bookstores that you would never guess.
Yeah. So you've got vocalists and you've got Broadway. You're surprising me with your collection. Is
and
lounge
then
music next?
No. Then I've got we've got 6 feet of just general records, and the rock music and jazz and other things are all mixed together.
Okay.
And I think there's actually a small comedy section.
Do you know what's in your comedy section?
I could, if you play it, I can move my lips along to about half of it. It's mostly it's a lot of Alan Sherman.
Oh, sure.
I grew up with Alan Sherman. My first exposure to a lot of songs that are on Alan Sherman records are the Alan Sherman records. I didn't know I didn't know the songs he was making fun of.
Sure.
Oh, sure.
I also, I have to. This is a strange thing to talk about. I didn't know Alan Sherman was. I didn't know he was Jewish. I didn't know that it was ethnic humor.
Sure.
It was just a comedy. It was just a comedy record.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, and so there were a lot of references that went way over my head, and but I just kind of liked his. I liked his style.
Sure. Well, I love listening. You should do a low stakes of your favorite comedy albums.
Wow, I do so many things that I worry about tuning people out. So
you
much
can't.
already.
You can never tune people out. Just do what you love, and people say this to us all the time. I can't stand the music you play, but I love hearing you talk about it.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah, I've actually been told by the radio station that I need to talk more, but sometimes I feel like I don't know how. I'm not very good with the one-way conversation.
Yeah,
it is weird.
That gets some taken used to. Definitely. I'm glad I have a co-host.
Oh yeah. But no, I've enjoyed doing. I feel like I've gotten to play a bunch of stuff that would never be on the radio, and that's always kind of interesting.
Definitely.
I actually played this Steve Reich composition called "Clapping," the clapping song, which is sort of a polyrhythmic. It's two people clapping, and they start off in sync, and then it drops a note for one of them, so they're immediately kind of going in a cycle, and then it cycles back to it goes around for enough bars that it cycles back to them clapping together again.
Was it Steve Reich? Was he the guy? There was a remix of an LCD Sound System song, I think, that was like that, or David Bowie.
Well, Steve Reich. This is the Steve Reich song. It's called the Clapping Song, and it's sort of it's up there in the world of experimental music. Because it's really dramatic and it's very easy to perform, and it's kind of a magic trick if you see it performed live, because you see them clapping in sync, and then you see it kind of turn into this texture and then come back to the unified thing. But the weird thing is, when I was searching for a recorded version of the Clapping Song, there's no none of the recordings are in discrete stereo. It seems like it would be the most obvious thing to make one person on the left channel and one person on the right channel, so you can kind of groove to the change.
Yeah.
But that's not how they do it. I feel like the first version of it I ever heard on vinyl was in that Beatles kind of hard left, hard right style, but that no longer exists. So So, I feel like I'm kind of proud to be able to play like a piece of music like that. I played Oh Superman early on. I don't know. I've just played, and I've played a bunch of poetry, which is kind of an interesting, strange thing to put on the radio. So I'm trying to keep it in the spirit of freeform music, in that like things that you would never hear on the radio, things that used to be on the radio but never are now.
Oh, I love it.
That's kind of the domain of the show.
I love it. So. We want to ask you, of course, if one of our favorite questions, and a lot of listeners want to know, too, if you're reading any favorite books right now that you might like to share.
I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks because I've just been doing a lot of, like, chore-type things.
Sure.
I'm listening to some really dull I find that kind of dull histories of the 20th century remind me that this isn't the only time that it seemed like the world was going to end over and over again.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to this book by David Halberstam called The Best and the Brightest, which is very dry, and it's got a lot of like you should have been there type information. It's sort of the run up. It's how the Vietnam War started, in spite of the fact that the Kennedy administration was filled with really intelligent people, and how they got all caught up in this weird political gambit. But one of the things that's really interesting and anachronistic about the book is that one of the big issues of the day was poverty in the United States. And I have to say, I have, except for like John Edwards, I don't think I've heard a single politician in my adult life talk about the problem of poverty. And it was... Especially
in that time period. It's not like it's the Great Depression.
No, it was not, hardly. It was, in fact, it was probably like the height of like union power and probably the biggest middle class that the United States ever had. But people were talking about eliminating poverty like it would be like eliminating polio. And it just makes, as somebody who, thinks about the world, I just wonder, like, what would it take to get people to actually worry about the welfare of other people like that? I mean, you see with like Black Lives Matter how distant some people can be to something that doesn't seem like it takes that much empathy to get to.
Yeah. It's sad that because that's even the case with the coronavirus, that people weren't taking it serious until someone they knew had it, and something bad happened with it, and it was like, oh, this is real. This is affecting me, and then there's some empathy. So it'd be nice if it didn't take it happening to people so much to actually feel that way.
Yeah, although I realize now that it's not in this Best and Brightest book. It's not posited as an idea, but I've heard people talk about the Johnson and Kennedy's preoccupation with poverty was in part to prove that capitalism was better than communism, because basically there were people in the public sphere were worried if the standard of living in the United States was worse than the standard of living, or the perception of the standard of living was in the United States was worse than in the Soviet Union, then it would make it seem like communism was a better system. So that was part of the impetus. Part of the impetus was actually kind of hawkish. It was really a part of the Cold War, that it was trying to prove that the U.S. was a better idea. So it wasn't just out of compassion. It's not like they were a bunch of Lutheran ministers. I mean, they were definitely they were definitely politicians.
History repeating itself, boy.
Yeah, I'm looking at my little Audible list here. I just listened to Berlin Stories. That's the by Christopher Isherwood. That was the thing that inspired Cabaret.
Oh.
And it's that's a real Nazi us-on. And let's see. I listened to the Valley of the Dolls 50th edition.
Awesome.
That was hilarious. Easy Riders and Raging Bulls. I don't know.
I love that book. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great book.
Yeah, I think that's actually like it's such a breezy, fun, and strange little. I mean, it's very gossipy, I guess, is really what it is. But it's about directors, all the kind of eccentric directors of the '70s.
Yep. That sent me down a Warren Oates rabbit hole.
I started listening to Civilization and Its Discontents, and it appears I have 49 minutes left. Not sure when I'm going to get through to that. Oh, I just recently listened to Breakfast at Tiffany's, which was
nice.
really interesting because it's nothing. It's exactly nothing like the movie, and I had never read it. So, and the strange thing about Breakfast at Tiffany's and checking it out at the same time as Berlin Stories, which Berlin Stories includes the short book I Am a Camera, which is that's the one that was turned into Cabaret. But of course there are no songs in it. The thing about Breakfast at Tiffany's and Berlin Diaries is that they really have a very similar tone. Even though they're very different authors, but it's like this very modern kind of conversational way of writing. Like there's lots of just back and forth talking. Listen to Sticky Fingers, which is the biography of Jan Wenner, which explains everything about why Rolling Stone was such a weird magazine. And I don't know, there's a whole bunch of things here. A very dry book about Vichy France. As I said, it's funny to find escapism in stuff that's about like horrible other times, but it is strangely comforting.
Yeah. I've been listening to some podcasts and things like that too, and it's like almost the darker the podcast, the better for me. Yeah. Personally.
But are you listening to like the big wave of like true crime podcasts? Because I have not really been down that rabbit hole.
There is one or two that I've been listening to for that. But there's a great one, and why can't I think of me right now? I've got my phone right here, so I can find it. There's a great one that is just straight up storytelling that was perfect for Halloween time because it's about Appalachia, and it was really fun to listen. I listened to the first season, and it's Old Gods of Appalachia, and it's just.
Oh, is it fiction or is it just?
It's
like
fiction.
Told stories.
Yep, and the guy that actually tells the story wrote the story, and he's got just this great booming, spooky voice as well, and it's just really, really well done storytelling, and it's spooky.
I have to say the thing about that sounds edifying, but there's this thing about podcasts for me that I don't even know what the point of it is. I listen to a podcast called How Did This Get Made, which is people talking about movies. Like I don't know a single movie they're talking about, I really enjoy them talking about these, just kind of running through these B movies in this kind of hilarious way. And there's a bunch of podcasts like that that are just really. It's kind of part of it is like I'm kind of in isolation, so I guess it's just comforting to just hear people talking.
Oh yeah,
It's weird. So like I'm getting strange comfort out of just listening to these very conversational podcasts.
I am going to be doing the podcast for They Might Be Giants fans where they take on songs. I was going to do it last year, and then I had something come up and couldn't do it. But you have to choose songs, and a lot of the songs have been taken. But I'm going to be doing this in December, and I chose XTC versus Adamant.
Good.
Do you want to weigh in on any? I mean, it's such a song that
I don't know if I want to put my thumb on the scale there.
there's because I think even it says in the lyrics there is no right or wrong. But do you want to talk about that? Maybe X amount of years on, who you think might be the winner?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, as for like things like podcasts about They Might Be Giants, I think both John and I haven't talked to him about it, but we've really demurred from participating in those things, mostly because it's just too weird to be so retrospective about something. Even, this is the problem of being in a band for 30-something years, is that we're still very much under the illusion that this is like an ongoing creative project, and there's a lot of activity around kind of memorializing and archiving what we're doing, and it's just it's I mean, in bits and pieces, it's not that hard, but to sum things up seems very weird to us. But about the song "Ecstasy and Adamant," basically, we live in rock culture is a very strange thing, and a lot of it is about the sort of the elusive quality of the performer. Very early on, people pointed out that if it wasn't for the sex appeal of the performer, there's no music there. Like people like Little Richard or Jerry Lee Lewis, like their appeal was the power of their performance, which was really, really intense. And then adults would listen to these songs, and it's just like somebody going like blappity blap blap, wow, wow, and parents would just think, what's that? Who needs that? And of course, a band like XCC is, coming from a much more formal songwriting point of view. Their first album had a little bit of the whappity whap, but
yeah, and I think that was because of that the guy who played the synthesizer. Once they left,
I'm not sure. I think it was also like they were also coming up in that no wave moment. I can't help but think that there was like a no wave influence on them, and for people listening who have no idea what no wave was, it was probably like the most unpopular subset of punk rock that in like 1980, 81, where a bunch of noise rock people sort of took over downtown New York and managed to clear the room with their music, because it was sort of like, it was that question. It was like, what's next? How can we go farther? Let's go even farther. And they went so far that everybody stopped listening. I mean, I think like James White and the Blacks and James Chance and the Contortions, those are some amazing records. But I do know that it's very much an acquired taste, and it might even be a kind of a you had to be there thing. I mean, I don't know. I'm very into no wave stuff, but most people just hate it, and it certainly wasn't Blondie, if you know what I mean.
No, it wasn't.
So I mean, I guess the idea of Ecstasy versus Adamant is that there are these two very valid threads in rock music. One of which is like the compelling song, and one of which is like the compelling persona. And I just felt like those, I really pulled them out just because at that moment they seemed perfectly, both of them had already kind of had hit their heights and were kind of at this point, they were neither in new faces or in the career retrospective stage of their career. They were both kind of dormant acts. And they're very English acts as well, I guess. And England tends to kind of chew through their artists anyway. So, but at any given time, you'll get both things happening, and their appeal is just to different people. I personally think that I like the persona-driven rock music. I'm not really into biography as like a driving force for celebrity. I don't like I find a lot of that stuff kind of takes any lightness out of it. I was talking to a guy, Dave Robinson from Stiff Records. He started Stiff Records, and his first gig in music was as roadie for Jimi Hendrix. And
wow.
he said, and this guy was like a friggin' encyclopedia of rock music. I can tell you, he knows everything about everybody. But he was saying that one of the things that's weird about Jimi Hendrix is that because he died so young and died the way that he did, and the sort of the myth-making part of rock is set up in such a certain way, he seems like this. At best, he seems like a mystical figure, and a lot of the times he just seems like he's like totally humorless. And the weird thing is that Jimi Hendrix was a hilarious guy to be around a lot of the time. Like, he was a total goofball and like very playful and, you know, kind of Dionysian. And all of that kind of went out the window when he died. So it was like, it's you know, it probably doesn't serve his brand to be thought of as like, oh, here comes Jimi Hendrix, the happy-go-lucky
prankster.
Prankster. But that is kind of who he was. So anyway, I don't know if that helps.
That helped a lot.
That was very interesting.
And I just got a message from Greg saying, "Come on, say the name of the podcast. They might be a podcast." And this might be a podcast, which is great.
There's another. Well, I'm glad to hear it's great. I'm sure they're doing a great job. I think there's another one too, but I don't know.
I think there's
definitely a set there right now. You know, I mean, we live in an era where soon everything will have a dedicated podcast, I think.
Each of your song will have a dedicated podcast.
Now we're talking. That's what I call progress.
Well,
we're welcome to the Miscellaneous Tea podcast. This whole episode is dedicated to the first 4 bars of Hello Radio.
Well, I tell you, I was really torn between doing We're the Replacements, because we're from Minnesota, and even though I think you guys have talked about how it's not about the band The Replacements, I was going to make it about The Replacements, but and then I was also torn between Kitten Intro.
Wait. There's a certain. There must be a certain. You should talk to John about this. But there's a certain amount of. It would be a lie to say it's not about. I mean, John wrote the thing, but like, it would be a lie to say it's not about the Replacements, because I mean, they're members of the Replacements name checked in the song.
Oh, I know. Yeah, Tommy.
I think I think the idea more than anything is that it's sort of like a projection of the. It's like a Philip Roth novel. You know, it's like
sure. Yeah.
You know, it's just projecting us into what we think their world must be like, which is just kind of like everybody who was like booked by Frank Riley in the 80s. You plug in, you know, when you're on tour, you plug, you know, it's 10,000 Maniacs is playing at the place you're playing the day before you're playing there every time you play. And like, and Husker Du or the Replacements or somebody, or like I'm trying to think of like a lesser known, what was that cowboy band? There was some band, or like Gene Loves Jezebel was playing like the day after us for like a year. So you just feel like you're living some like one day offset parallel existences. That's what I sort of drew from the song. But you should ask Linnell.
Okay.
So what song did you take?
I did choose XTC versus Animat.
XTC.
Even though
yeah.
I really wanted to do Kitten Intro too, because I remember the first time I heard that, I just thought, oh my God, I can't love this band more.
Oh, well, here's speaking of kittens, my cat just walked in the room. Hey, buddy.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
It's the top of the hour, so the show was firing off. That comes on after us.
Oh, okay. Well, are there any? Should we do a speed round of questions here?
Yeah, let me do the station ID quick, and then let's do a bunch of them quick. You're listening to Independent Public Radio, The Maverick, KMSU Mankato, KMSK Austin, broadcasting from the campus of Minnesota State University Mankato. Big ideas, real world thinking. All right, Tim, you ready to roll?
How long has that been the slogan?
Quite a while.
Decade at least.
Yeah. Sometimes the big ideas, real world thinking gets changed a little bit, but we're a university station, so that's been the for probably at least 5 years.
And how many people on the air are from the university?
From the university itself?
Yeah.
A few. Most of our shows are volunteers from the community. So
Oh,
that's what is probably 80% of our programming are just local folks coming up and doing shows.
Hold on a second. I'm going to tweet out that I'm on the air. JF, I'm on the air now.
Na, boo boo. No.
Yeah. All right. That'll get people. That'll get 5 people tuning in, and then I'll be gone. I'll be gone before they get there. But I'm happy to talk forever. Let's talk till Linnell gets on. Kind of all talk, less rock. Marathon.
You're getting you're making the folks at your radio station happy. You're talking a lot.
I know.
Okay, speed round.
Okay.
This is from Owen in South Lake Tahoe, California. Regarding the original Dial-A-Song, is there any possibility for a collection of Dial-A-Song tunes to be officially released, similar in fashion to that of the John Henry demos?
Oh, well, the John Henry demos was a kind of an anomaly because it was our first sort of exploration into working with a live rhythm section. So we were so sort of insecure about that we tracked everything once before. I mean, we worked as hard on the John Henry demos as we did on like a regular album. So I can that was kind of its own special deal. Most of the Dial-A-Song stuff, oh gosh, I mean, I've got like tubs of cassettes, but a lot of the Dial-A-Song stuff got erased because the cassettes that come with phone machines, that came with phone machines back then, were set up different. They didn't have any leader tape on them, so it started right away.
Oh yeah.
And so those were the really good ones. So a lot of times we would re-record on those because that meant the phone would ring once and then you'd immediately hear the song, and that was the best way to present it. If it had like a 5-second piece of leader tape at the top, a lot of times people would hang up. So so it wasn't something, I think the thing about Dial-A-Song really, it was an ephemeral thing. Like it
had to be there
while it existed. Yeah, you had to, it was really, the truth of it is like the best part of Dial-A-Song is that it happened, not that it was listened to forever.
Sure.
A lot of the stuff was like extremely sketch based, and we didn't really. It's like it is for a lot of different people, a lot of different performers and writers. It's like there's something very liberating about doing something that isn't going to be closely tracked, and that was one of those things. Like a lot of it just went into the air. I mean, sometimes when I see discussions of songs that we did for Dial-A-Song, like I realize that they were just things that we slapped together like for that week, and that was or for that day, and it just never went any further than that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nightmare for the completists, but it's kind of a beautiful concept.
Yeah.
We have, let's see. Oh, gosh, where'd it go? Oh, Gabrielle in Austin, Texas says, have you ever thought about doing concerts or vibe reports over Zoom? I would buy a ticket every single time.
Well, we looked into it, and there's a lot of technical issues. Hearing one another in real time, and also, we thought about it, but it just seems it seems very tricky.
Sure.
Like if we don't have the kind of infrastructure to do it that easily, and I'm not sure how compelling it would be actually. So we're kind of giving that one a pass. In a way, if somebody came out and did something that was really seamless and it looked and sounded good, it might sort of turn my head around. But I don't know. The things I've seen, the best things I've seen have just been solo acts, and usually people who are like real virtuosos. I'm just worried that there'd be something seriously smaller than life if we tried to hobble together something. I mean, Zoom is not really in real time, right? I mean, it's actually, there's delays and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, everything's just a
Especially
little
if you're
off sync.
trying to sing together
Yeah.
or do something. Yeah, it is a little off.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I've just been hoping for this thing to end.
Yeah.
I when it first started, everyone was like, "Oh, it'll be a couple of months," and it's just like, "Hey, man, what happened to those couple of months?" This is I don't know when it's going to end, but if it keeps on going, and it looks like it probably will, we'll hopefully be able to figure something out. I haven't seen John physically since March, so we're working in the studio in December, and maybe we'll be able to make something out of that.
Okay.
But yeah, it's been a kind of an unpredictable ride. This is a speed round. I need to answer shorter. I need to keep my.
Okay.
I'm going to keep my answers short.
Well, here's one from Tracy in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. TMBG toured Canada in 2018. How would you describe the difference between American and Canadian TMBG audiences?
And we've got a ton of Canadian requests too, by the way.
Oh, that's interesting. We really we wanted to do a proper tour of Canada and sort of just figured out it was great. There were a lot of people who had been clearly waiting their entire lives for us to come to their town. It was by and large it was fun. Highway driving on a tour bus in Canada, not fantastic, but it was the audiences were amazing.
Eric in St. Louis Park says, I witnessed the flood show at the Majestic Theater in Milwaukee the night of the Great Polka Stage collapse. Can you please give us a perspective from your side of the stage on what happened?
Well, I've repeated the story many times, including to the police. So I like to think of my version of the story as the story of record. We were playing in a hall that did not allow people to stand in the aisle or in front of the stage, and it was a theater. And this was early days for us, relatively, and we had not done a lot of theater shows, and I think we felt like we really relied on the audience, like being up on their feet and moving around, and you kind of feel like when you do a theater show, you have to kind of puff yourself up a little bit that people are really paying attention, and of course they are, but it's just a different kind. It's a
different energy.
It's a very different energy, and I think we were feeling like we had lost the energy of the crowd somehow, which is probably in the fullness of time, obviously not the case. But I basically the song came about halfway through the show, I think, and it seemed like a very strategic time to just get people to come into the aisles. And so I said, hey everybody, if you want to, get a better seat, just stand up and join us on this next song, the famous polka. And I think that I'm not sure what the key word was, but I certainly was not trying to invite people on stage. But it turned out that the stage was very easy to just essentially step onto. It was because there was a plank, a bunch of plywood over the orchestra pit. So it just basically probably like a few dozen people or more kind of flooded onto this orchestra pit, and then some people were just literally standing next to us while we're performing the song. And about 45 seconds into that song, all the plywood planks, which were not designed for people to stand on, let alone like pogo on, just collapsed, and everybody fell down about half a story, or like 6 feet. Their heads were essentially, when they stood up, were like at our feet. And it was an incredible plume of dust. But the lucky thing was that they were all, 16-year-olds, so their bones are made of rubber, and everybody just kind of brushed it off, and nobody was injured. So that was the good part. but explaining to the detective at the hospital what we were doing, what we were trying to accomplish, was kind of nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
We have a tweet. Someone asks, "What is your favorite Prince song?"
I really like "Sign of the Times" in general. That I feel like that whole record kind of has a great, weird energy. I like it when he pitch shifts his voice. Yeah, I think maybe maybe "Kiss" is my favorite song.
That's a good song.
Yeah,
you can't go
Can't
wrong
argue.
talking Prince in Minnesota.
But the weird thing is, I don't think Prince really wrote that track. I think that track was put together. I think it's one of the few examples of a track that was put together by somebody else.
Well, one of the things that came out with that Sign of the Times box set is so many of the songs were assembled by Wendy and Lisa.
That's a crazy set. Have you heard the song that's like 15 minutes long that the only lyric to it is "ice cream"?
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's really, really weird. It's a great idea for a jam because it's just like the way it's just sort of almost a James Brown riff. But basically, if he just yells out the word "ice cream," then the drummer just plays a bar of a drum roll, and then they just bust into this groove, and then anything can happen. It's all kind of an audible, he just looks at the horn player or looks at Wendy or Lisa or whoever, and somebody just takes it. But it's I want to steal that idea. Ice cream.
Just come up with your own word.
Speaking of podcasts, I don't even know what podcast this was on, but soon after Prince died, there was a podcast episode by somebody who's a Minnesotan who was, as an adult, decided he was going to skate again. He was going to go and skate on ice in the winter again for the first time since being a teenager, I guess. And he got, there was a huge cold spell for a couple of months or whatever, and he went down to the public ice skating place at 6 or 7 in the morning, and he was skating around, and then while he was there, this figure appeared in literally in a purple down everything. And it was Prince.
Oh, wow.
There are stories about that all over Minnesota.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he said that Prince was I know Prince was a really good roller skater, and but evidently Prince was a superior ice skater, and was doing stuff he's spinning around, skating backwards, doing all this stuff, doing all the competition skate stuff, and the guy, they're sharing this pond and skating at the crack of dawn. And then, I don't remember. It was just such a strange. It was just one of the podcasts that came out, a month after he passed away. I thought it was kind of hilarious.
Wow. Do we have any more questions, Tim?
Well, there are a lot of questions. You have time for just a couple more?
I got nothing but time.
Well, Emily in Spanish Fork, Utah says, "Which fictional character do you think you are most like?"
Oh, that's
hard. Which fictional character? God, I wish I read more fiction. I don't know. I can't. I got to pass.
Okay.
I don't have an answer.
Are there any bands that you've been listening to in quarantine that you'd like to recommend to people? That is from Kevin in Richmond Hills, Queens, New York.
Oh, sure. What is it called? What's the name of this band? Better Oblivion. Wait, what are they called? They have a song called Dylan Thomas. Actually, is it called Better Oblivion Society?
Boy, that's not ringing any bells with me.
Hold on a second. I'm gonna.
I'll bet our listeners probably know.
Well, if I just look up the words Dylan and then add T. I got the poetry of Dylan Thomas, but they have a song called Dylan Thomas. See all songs. Better Oblivion Community Center is the name of the band, and there are two singers in the band, a woman and a man, and they're both really, really good. That's a great album, and also this band, and I don't even know where they're from, called what are they called? Big Thief.
Oh, they're from. They got some Minnesota roots.
They do?
Yeah, didn't they play when you were on the Prairie Home Companion?
Yep. Yeah, that was how I was introduced with them to
or
them.
Live from Here wasn't Prairie Home Companion.
Yeah, and it's funny. The every band coming off the stage looked like they had just been like hit by a bicycle. You know, they everyone was like, what was that? You know, could you hear anything? I couldn't hear anything. Like I think it was like a bad day for every single band. But they're just fantastic. I'm sure they're a big deal in a lot of people's worlds. But I just think she's got a very, very amazing thing.
Yeah.
It also points out that I don't know how to spell the word thief. That's what I. So. Yeah, but they have. I don't know. They have this song called "Paul" that is just one of the most interesting, true kind of. It's just a really very real song. Like whoever it's about, I feel like must be really scared of her.
Boy, I was just thinking about that because that was such a great performance that you guys had on that show. What is it gonna? I wish I could be at the first time that you guys are on the stage again, because I bet your pent-up energy from not being able to perform is just going to be out of this world.
Oh, I hope so. It'll be really nice to be able to play again. I've been doing my vocal warm-ups. I'm ready to go.
Well, you had surgery too, didn't you?
I'm in the middle of two surgeries. I just had my left hand carpal tunneled, and my right hand will be carpal tunneled in the beginning of December.
Oh boy, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is. And according to the doctor, it was a really good thing that I had it done. So, everybody's recovery is different. Mine took a little bit longer than I think it usually does, but I've been putting it off for too long. But there's never been I guess that's the one good thing about having your entire schedule cleared is that
you can make time.
You can do stuff like that.
Well, are we pretty good with questions?
I think so. Well, one more from Twitter. Coffee during quarantine, more or less?
More. I would say more, or yes. I actually just bought a second coffee maker so I don't have to walk downstairs to get coffee.
Life hack.
Yeah.
And also, I just want to say, my cousin Eric saw you play at the Geek Bowl in Chicago this year, and he said you were amazing.
Oh, that's so
sweet. I just want to throw that out there.
Wonderful.
Well, we can't thank you enough for spending, an hour and 20 minutes with us, and for just everything you do. For you guys are just always so kind and accommodating with us, and boy, we just love everything that you guys do. And keep it up and stay safe.
And we hope to see you on tour next year.
Yeah, I still got my tickets for the show. So when that happens again, be there.
Stay safe. Wash your hands. Call your mom. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Adios.